Hey, thank
Down
you.
to the speakeasy.
Oh, down to the speakeasy.
Remember the password, huh?
Open this door. That's,
Oh,
That's so good.
it's open.
that's crazy. Very cool.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Please open this door gently. What is it? What is this?
This
The
is
layer?
The layer at the Innovation Collective.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty massive
I
door.
feel like I do need a. Yeah, was it like literally a vault at some point? What was it?
I don't know. Brett, what did this place used to be?
That would be important. Yeah. There you go.
All right, so we've got that one going, and we can kick this thing off. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. McCarriger Family Farm Substack. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is my mom and dad. I've introduced
Yeah.
you already off camera,
Right on.
but
Okay.
and you need no introduction, obviously. Obviously, but there are a handful of people in our personal life who don't know, and
Sure.
so you are Daniel Salatin of the Polyface Farm in Virginia, and we
Yes.
just visited last year and
Okay.
got to meet you at the Brownstone Institute.
Right, yep.
That was really cool.
Gotcha.
Had a conversation behind the events, and I got to attend two of your things today at the Modern Homesteading Conference.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what's the experience been like, this modern homesteading
Sure.
experience.
Oh, they're great. No, modern homesteading is super fun. It's got a great feel. Everybody's super engaged. It's got a good attendance this year, and the facilities, of course, are great. But more importantly, just the community is super nice. The whole community involved, and for me, traveling around to more of these as I've gotten more involved in it, just that speaker community, and so being able to connect with very similar speakers every time. So whether it be Melissa or certainly Mrs. Sally Fallon or other people, to be able to connect with different people each time, and that becomes my kind of my community at that level. And even they had like the VIP speaker night last night, Thursday night. To be able to just have that time to have conversation and learn all about those people, and Ruth Ann Zimmerman, all those people, and just we become family friends on the circuit, if you will. And it feels a little bit like a circus sometimes. New city every night.
Yeah, well, this is our first time doing it as a farm, having a farm stand there. Part of the reason was we never really thought that we'd be able to sell our vegetables there, but we had the idea of the snack packs. And so those things have been selling like hotcakes all day long. Yeah,
Fun.
So that's been a lot
great.
of fun. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good
and
for
so
you.
I wanted to start this off by, Mom and Dad were not present. Obviously, most of the people listening weren't present for the two talks that you gave, one
Right.
before lunch and one during lunch. And so
Gotcha.
I thought maybe we spend a little bit of time on the first one and then some time on the second one.
Sure.
And so the first one's just on overstocking. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about overstocking?
Yeah, I mean, so in homesteading world, like it's so easy to get really excited about all the different species, and you want, goats and sheep and your milk cow and chickens and turkeys and pigs and lions and tigers and bears and all that good stuff. And inevitably
Horses.
Yeah, and horses, yeah. Inevitably, you have not enough land because of financial restrictions. Of course, land's expensive. It's the most expensive thing that anybody will ever purchase, realistically. And it is the most restrictive that you can't just make more. I mean, if I want more chicks, I can just order more chicks from the hatchery. I can't order more land. I can't make it. And the idea that, you're going to get a limited amount of land, and now that's your land base. It could be 4 acres, it could be 10 acres, it could be 1,000 acres, but that's the land base. And you can always rent more property nearby, but it's never quite the same. And anyway, most people in a hunger to get into homesteading, which I completely encourage, are going to purchase a smaller piece of property because it's what they can afford. Again, I totally encourage that as well. But then we come up short with available feed and space, right? So we have to put good parameters around it. And so the talk this morning was just focusing on some basic principles that people can use to evaluate if they are overstocked, how to decide how to be less overstocked, and just some general principles on how you can go home and make those decisions yourself. It's not me having to look at every farm and go, yeah, you're overstocked, yeah, you're not overstocked, but you can take these principles home, and they work all over the world, and say, okay, yes, I am overstocked. And even to the point of one guy came up to me afterwards and said, yeah, it's good to know that I could be overstocked in one spot and understocked in another if I'm not moving them properly, right? And the example of being like a permanent water fixture. So permanent water tank in the middle of your pasture, whether it's a 5-acre pasture or a 5,000-acre pasture, those animals are going to congregate around that water point, right? And so then that water point area is overstocked, but the extremities of your farm might be understocked. So the ability to move the water or move the animals is important to make sure that you're not overstocking a particular space, even though your entirety may be at a good balance. So just kind of some of those concepts, yeah.
Yeah, and one of you talked about how cows can easily, quickly overstock things. You talked
Sure.
about how the horse is the biggest, greatest way that people
Sure.
overstock things.
Right.
But and my question was, you said that if you're bringing in feed, and a lot of it, chances are you're overstocked. And we bring in feed for the broilers. We bring in.
Sure.
But is the key that it's herbivore versus omnivore?
Right. If you're bringing in feed for herbivores, that's a big red flag, right? And I understand there are dormancy times, whether it be winter or summer droughts or what have you. But in general speaking, if you're bringing in a lot of alternative feeds, so mostly hay, you are typically overstocked, right? And that's something to consider when you're doing that. And now, yeah, the omnivore, that's a wholly different ball of wax, right? If you're bringing in, you're bringing in feeds for those, that's just that's the only way they're going to live at that density. In other words, if you have 5 acres and you turn loose 5 chickens, you wouldn't have to feed those chickens. They would be fine. They would root through things. They would find things, table scraps, all these, et cetera. And they would lay the occasional egg.
It's like in Hawaii.
Exactly.
There's
They're all
always
over.
some chickens,
They're all over the place. Exactly. Now, will they survive the winter in this part of the world? Possibly, possibly not. Because again, they're tropical birds. So you got to understand that they are not. Homesteading as a principle from a food security, self-reliance standpoint is a wonderful trend in the U.S. or the world. It is difficult, though. You have to be careful to make sure that we don't forget that nature doesn't stay in one place, right? And so as a historical norm, even humans were nomads. Very up until the last 200 years, maybe even 300 years if you really want to be extreme. Even some of the lords and gentry of Europe were permanent, but their holdings were vast.
Right.
Right.
Spread out.
And so they would have people all over the place moving herds or livestock to various parts of their holdings over the course of a year. I say that to say that migration, which is the word that we would associate with this, is paramount for all livestock and animals, but is hard to replicate on a very small parcel. It's doable, and with modern technology, electric fence, electric netting, lightweight infrastructure, portable shelters, things like that, you can mimic migration. I mean, that's the Polyface chicken model of the 10 by 12 chicken shelter where you can put 70 birds in it and you're moving them every day. That's migration. You're mimicking migration in that form. However, you're not able to mimic the complete migration of seasonality, right? And so you do have to take that into account. And that's where a building that fits the permanent structure or fits the climate of the animal is helpful. Meaning, so for the meat birds, we just make sure we butcher them all before the season changes and we don't have them. So that's easy. The layers, you're going to have those throughout the season. And I know plenty of people who do buy young pullets in the spring and get rid of them all by late fall, and that's the end of it. They don't have any. But if you want to do year-round marketing or year-round sales, you're going to have birds 365. And so there we have high tunnel greenhouses for the birds to go into. Then they stay warm in the winter, again, trying to mimic that tropical idea, because we don't let them fly all the way to the south, right? And then
Right.
they don't migrate to Florida, which they would typically do, right? And that's the hard part about this that's the hard part about homesteading, is understanding that it takes a bigger investment into making the animals living that traditional natural setting lifestyle without being able to migrate, from Canada to Mexico.
Right.
And so the land, that American dream land ownership, or that homesteading law that happened back, when they opened up the West and stuff, and if you could go hold it, you got it, right? And allowed a lot of people to get land that never could, and that was a wonderful thing. But it really changed the mindset of humans from that mobility perspective to, this is mine, I'm going to control it, I'm going to do what I want to do on it, and you can't say anything about it. Which I'm all for property rights, I get it. Yes, it's, that's a whole nother political discussion, which I, completely agree with. Hey, you owned it, it's yours, you should be able to do what you want to do. But when it comes to the livestock side, it becomes problematic. So you have to be careful. So anyway, that's a long answer to say that it's important for animals to be moved around, and it's important for animals to be matched to their climate settings, which means you should do the best you can. So if you have cows, you want to process as many of those cows before the winter time as possible. And I realize you can't have them in the spring and butcher them in the fall. I get that. But when the time comes, if you can butcher those in September or certainly October, then you have as low number of possible by the time you get to wintertime, when you're having to feed hay, right? And you're making that as best seasonally matched as possible.
Gotcha. Do you guys have any questions about overstocking?
It's easily done, and with chickens and stuff, suddenly they're in your garden or they're on your back porch or what have you, and you have to be careful. But with the electric fence, you can control them, and that's the nice thing about the smaller animals, is that you can put them, literally in your garden bed or in your garden path today, and then opposite tomorrow or what have you, and that makes it very, very convenient. Yeah.
Do you guys hatch your own eggs?
Our own layers,
For the
yes.
layers?
Yeah, we do hatch our own layers. Yes, we do. And the only reason we're doing that is not because you can't get quality poultry anywhere else, because you certainly can. What we were looking for is a more microclimate and micro experience bird. And that's why you have, you get on any of the hatchery websites and there's, just scroll birds, all these different birds. And mostly they were just designed for or bred for specific areas or specific needs. And so that's kind of what we're shooting for, is a bird that survives well on pasture, avoids predation in a free range setting, gives us a really nice, hardy, healthy, larger, robust bird at processing, so at the stewing hen stage. The difference between a hybrid bird at like 2.5 pounds and one of our birds at 3.5 or even 4.5 pounds is a pretty significant difference if you're going to sell a stewing hen or a processed layer. And then we just wanted a bird that's pretty hands off. I know you can get online that looks like, you got to feed them this kind of feed for 1 to 4 weeks, and then this kind of feed from 5 to 6 weeks, and you're like, oh my gosh. I just want to be able to give them feed at the beginning and then change it over to layer feed when they start laying an egg. And that's what this bird does. So it doesn't lay as much as a hybrid by any stretch, and it doesn't lay even as many as some of the the old hybrid breeds. But, but it does a very good job of surviving. It's an easy keeper, and it gives us a really nice stewing hen at the end, and at the same time, give us some really nice production of eggs. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you know what your agricultural zone is?
We are a 6.5. Yeah. So officially, a lot of people consider us a 7, but in our mountain, we're about 1,800. We're about 1,800 feet elevation, which puts us in about a 6.5 zone. Yeah. Our frost date's about May 15, and we had a frost date. We had a frost this year on like May 12th. A killing frost, like all of our fruit, like God, no apples. no pairs, done. Sad days.
I have one thing on overstocking.
Yeah.
And it was most of your talk. I was kind of wondering, but why does it matter? And there was this moment where I think you said it, right? I think it's what I'm thinking of as the circle of stress. And
Right.
But could you maybe elaborate on that?
Sure.
A
So
little bit?
why is it important? Well, so two main reasons. One is when animals are overstocked, it does stress all of the species: plants, people, livestock. All of it becomes stress, and then suddenly you're ending up replacing it with additional bought-in things. So fertilizer, seeds. Now you're not just buying hay or feed. You're buying medications. You're buying fertilizers. You're buying mowers to cut down on the weeds. You've got all these things that you're buying, and so that just adds. It just snowballs on this whole process. The other thing it does is it doesn't build soil, and that's really the big thing. Is if it doesn't build soil, then you really lead down a path of slow degradation, which leads to less nutrient dense products, less self-sustaining products, animals, and then hence less to be able to pass on to any other generation, right? So at the end of the day, if you have been mining out of your soil or out of your operation your whole life, there's not as much to pass on to the next generation. And whatever that generation looks like, whatever. And so we call it elevating the commons. So better water, more water, retained and passed on to the neighbors, better community, smell. You're not smelling anything. Better air quality, better and more consistent soil and soil life and soil vibrance. All of those things grow more food. All of those things grow more food, and that allows the next generation to be more self-sustaining, and that dominoes on itself too. Yeah.
So then the answer is stressed animals lead to stressed plants, lead to stressed people, lead to stressed animals, lead to stressed plants. It just becomes this cycle.
It is a death spiral. Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
a death spiral. It sure is. Yeah.
Great. Well, and I think you kind of opened up the segue there by talking about passing it on and the commons.
Sure.
And so, as a segue, I'm wondering if either of you have a question to kind of kick off that segment of this.
Well, yes, as somebody who's homesteaded for 30 years in North Idaho,
Sure.
we sold our original homestead and purchased a 10-acre property that we developed a business on, and we run McCarricker Family Farm now, which operates on 2.5 acres. We do CSAs. We supply 3 farmers markets.
Sure.
We'd like to expand into some restaurants. But our biggest thing is we had 10 children. Most of them moved away and are living, other lives.
Sure.
None of them were really interested in taking over the farm.
Right.
And then David and Ann stepped forward about a year ago and said they wanted to take a look at it. And so they moved up, and Ann interned for a year.
Sure.
And they decided, yes, this is what they want to do. They want to raise their family out in the country on a farm and continue to develop and expand the business that I did on my own. And now there's 3 people running it, and my husband does all the infrastructure. He built everything.
Sure.
And I
great.
do all the farming.
Yeah.
So
A very common story. I mean, in more ways than one, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, very, very common.
But now we come to the legality of how do you transition this to the next generation?
Sure.
Obviously, the other children are not interested in it, but the property value and the lifetime investment that we've poured into the property, David and Ann are not in a position to take over financially with. So how do you transition that? You set up a trust.
And the fun part is Well, the interesting part about that is that the land value went up having very little to do with anything that you did.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could have sat on it and done absolutely nothing
Yes.
on it, but because of property values in Idaho and Virginia, very similar,
It's
the property
exponential.
values went up, exactly, and exponential in Idaho compared to other states, but,
As an example, our original 5 acres that we sold,
right,
2.5 years later, at the beginning of COVID,
Right.
people that bought our place sold it for double.
double.
Double
Yeah,
in 2
double,
years.
Yeah, in 2 years. It had nothing to
So-
do with anything
and they didn't
did
do
to-
any
they didn't do
improvements except
anything.
paint.
Yeah, except
So-
paid some money. Yeah, and you're like, shoot, I should have waited 2 more
No,
years.
we would have been too old. We couldn't have done the farm if we
Right.
waited 2 more
So
years.
a couple
But-
of things. Yeah, no, those are all really good points, and very, very common, struggles. Absolutely. I mean, and our family has not gotten it perfect by any stretch, and we certainly have a lot to learn. I think a couple of thoughts that I'll riff on that I did mention in my lunch talk is, what are we really trying to pass on? And that's kind of part of the wrestle, right? It's like, are we passing on a financial investment that we made, or are we passing on a vision and a dream and a goal, more of a mission? Are we passing on a mission and a vision? Because as we know, if you'd have taken that same amount of money and invested it when you were 20 and continued to invest it throughout your life, it probably would be more cash value than it would have been. Now, obviously, the COVID one is a little bit of a different situation, but generally speaking, land investment is a defensive position, not an offensive. If you were trying to make money, you invested in, stocks, bonds, gold, silver, all that good stuff, blah, 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 precious metals, yada, yada. But if you're going to just say, hey, you know what, I want something that's going to be there for a long time, not fluctuate a lot, you invest in land. Okay. So I guess, the point is, if you're like, okay, you got 10 kids, right? You said 10 kids. Mm-hmm. If you got 10 kids and you wanted to give them the best financial, you said, what do I want to pass on? I want to pass on the best financial opportunity. You would have lived in a small little house, possibly, and put all that money in stocks and then divided that up 10 ways, and that would have been very simple. But that's not a fulfilling life. That's not something of value to you. Now it's valuable to you and your family. It's not necessarily valuable to your siblings. So I asked that question first. The next question is does the land have value if it's going to get sold? Yes, of course. If it's not going to get sold, what value does it have?
Whatever it can produce.
Exactly, whatever it can produce, or very, very little. I mean, yes, you can borrow against it. It's collateral. That does have some advantage, but very, very little. And it does have, some intrinsic just increase in value. But again, only if you sell it. I mean, those people who doubled it over COVID, they would have never recognized that had they sold it. If they just said, hey, this is our home, this is our generational family, we're not going anywhere, it could have gone up 100 times. And they're never going to recognize it because we're not going to sell. So disconnecting the business, which is something you've built in real time, versus and have control over, which,
Sort of.
yeah, meaning you can have business evaluations are very fluid. Like you can get one of business evaluator and think it's worth $1 million, and another one that thinks it's worth $10. So I don't put a lot of stock, especially in ag. Those can be very fickle. I mean, people say, "Oh, Polyface is worth millions and millions." Is it? Who's gonna buy it? Like it's only worth what somebody's gonna pay for it. So if someone's gonna, no multi-million-dollar investor is gonna come in like I'm gonna buy Polyface. Well, then Joel and Daniel quit. Well, and other people quit, and the culture disintegrates, and it's worth nothing in 5 years. Right. So why is somebody going to buy it, right? Okay? And same with y'all. Like, if nobody farms it, nobody sells it, nobody goes to farmer's market, nobody does anything, what's its value? The business really doesn't have any. So the business really is kind of out the window. It doesn't really have anything, right? And I'm not saying that it's not valuable. I'm just, your name and your reputation is valuable. But if someone, to try to sell it, people that are connected to you as a family, it has value. meaning your customers know you, they trust you. If even me, like just take myself, I was coming and say, I'm going to buy your operation. I'm going to expand into Idaho, right? They don't know me, they don't trust me. Why would they care? Why would they trust me? Now, I mean, maybe that's a bad example in this world, but you get the point.
In general.
Joe Blow down the street is not going to be able to carry on your business like you can. The last part of this is then fair and equitable. We hear those words thrown around a lot. And a lot of you grew up in Idaho from a long time ago, probably roll your eyes at those two words, right? Yeah, that life is not fair or equitable, so get over yourself. It's never fair or equal, tough luck. Of which I would agree. This is a long answer, but the last piece that I would say is that the inheritance should not, you should not look at the inheritance as something that should be fair and equal. And that is a very difficult conversation to have. And I would say this, I'm assuming some of your family's going to watch this, so sorry. If some of the siblings are waiting for y'all to kick so that they can be a couple $100,000 richer, that's probably not what you want to give them because it's probably a bad attitude. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah.
If they want to make sure that you're cared for and taken care of, then the money doesn't matter. Meaning, hey, if sibling A has enough money to make sure y'all are taken care of and sibling B make sure you have enough food on the plate, you're working together. We're good. Yeah. If sibling C has the time and the ability to be long-term caregivers, again, these are awkward conversations to have, but these are the real ones, like has the time and the space to be able to care for you so you don't go into a nursing home, that has value, right? But it doesn't have financial exchange. Most people in your case at this point, you sell off the assets, you move to the retirement home, you live out your days playing bridge or watching Wheel of Fortune and die, which sounds terrible. And so you want to be able to live, most of us want to live out our lives on our passions, on our dreams, on our homes, especially in farming and ag. And so having that conversation early. So for example, to get real down what it is, we don't believe in equal inheritance. I mean, the Polyface model is we don't believe in equal inheritance, meaning that if you need to set it up in a trust so the other siblings understand that, okay, you may get the farm in name so that you have control, right? What we've learned is authority is what matters. The control of the land or the authority of the land is what matters.
But I can't just turn around and
But
sell
you can't just turn around and sell it if another COVID were to happen and it's now worth 10 times what it was. Right. So if that were to happen, so as you enter into like and I'm not a legal counsel and we have not gotten all the way through this. My grandmother just passed away and she was part owner of the land. And so we are going to be now, she was at a place where she couldn't make those decisions when we were wanting to make those kind of decisions. So we had to wait till she passed and then the inheritance has to happen, And then we will be able to make some of those decisions going forward. So it was unequal inheritance. It was unequal inheritance from them to my father, and it's going to be unequal inheritance from them to me. However, we're actually looking at doing a little bit more locked up so that it doesn't have that opportunity to just sell it whenever I want. Mm-hmm. Meaning that if you were into a trust, you write up the language however you want. It gets stamped by an attorney or whatever, say this is a legal document. All the siblings sign it and say, okay, it's totally yours to do whatever you see fit. However, if you ever decide to sell it, the proceeds of that sale get split up 10 ways, right? Now, you're not able to just roll around in the money like Scrooge McDuck, right? So, right?
All the money that we have,
all the money that,
how rich
that.
we are, yes.
Right. And if it ever changed, then it would be split. right? And maybe it's even at a different rate because you were there and took care of the taxes in the house and made sure because taking care of land's expensive,
Yeah.
right? The siblings aren't there taking care of they're not paying the taxes, they're not keeping up the driveway, they're not fixing the fence, they're not, and I'm not saying they're lazy, I'm just saying they choose a different path.
Right.
They have their other hard to deal with, right? They may have student loans, they may have, a house in in the suburb to take care of. I don't know, but it's not all equal, right? It's not all fair. You chose to take care of these things, and so you should. So maybe you get a double portion or what have you. Thinking about this historically as well, Europe and whatnot, it was all genturial. It was all oldest son got it, no matter what. No question. That's why they had land that got passed generationally wealthy. There was no question of it ever getting split, right? It was just oldest son, boom, boom, boom. Now, the other siblings had like lifetime rental rights for like $1 or lifetime rights to the property to start businesses that were non-competitive, right? So if there was it was a big cattle ranch, sibling, for oldest son, you're not the oldest. You're not the oldest.
Third
but-
oldest, yeah.
So the oldest son wants to take over the cattle ranch. Cool. You want to start a cattle ranch. You don't get to. You got to go somewhere else. If you want to start a chicken farm, great. You can now work together. You can build a chicken farm on that ranch and everybody's good. If the oldest son doesn't want a cattle ranch and you want a cattle ranch, guess what? You can now cattle ranch. But the name and ownership of the property still is in that son, and it doesn't get broken up. So those like big 25, 35, 4,500 acre holdings just stayed like boom, boom, just family to family to family, and they never had to deal with this. And it's only been in the U.S. this very, very short period of time that we've thought, okay, we've got to give it fair, we got to give it equal. And so that's why these land portions have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller in a very, very short period of time. Very short. I mean, you start cutting it up 4 or 5 ways, 10 ways, 7 ways, and you do that over 3 generations, you will go from 1,000 acres to 100 acres to 10 acres in 2 generations. Right. Whoa. Wow. That can't go on. It can't. Right? And so we have to fundamentally change it. And so for me, being able to riff on this because of the format, for me, you're down to desire, passion transfer, vision, and skill set, right? And so what I talked about at lunch is I said, we don't think about it at all in our culture to say, we don't think it weird when a attorney sells his law firm to another attorney that's not the family. Mm-hmm. Of course, right? So if attorney has a son and the son goes into carpentry, we don't think twice about that father selling the law firm to some other attorney. And like, what? You didn't give the law firm business to the son that's a carpenter? How cruel could you possibly be? We don't say that.
It would be the opposite, nepotism.
Right. Yeah. The carpenter son's gonna be like, what do I do with a law firm? This is a disaster, right? It's a dumpster fire, of course. But we do that with the farm because we see the big value, right? The law firm is only valuable because it has a reputation. It's got a track record, right? It's got clients, so those are valuable. The farm is valuable because it goes up in value, and it's worth $2.4 million, and we all want a piece of that, right? Then but the other 9 have no desire to be farmers and have no skill sets to be farmers, and so we sit there and we go, oh, we want to be fair and equal. It's worth $2.4 million. But like, wait a minute. We got one kid who's really good. He's the lawyer. Give it to them. In the lawyer analogy, give it to the lawyer kid because he's going to be doing a really good job, or she's going to be doing a really good job. And so that's my answer to the whole, like, we've got a bunch of kids, whether it's just 1 or 7 or 10, you can't split it up all these ways. Now, are there ways to be, doing some like long-term rental? There's lots of creative ways. If you're like, hey, we want to make sure that they get some credit because they're part of the family. Well, it means that for the next X number of years, maybe you need to rent it from them, and that goes into a pot outside of the estate that then just gets divided those other 9 ways when you pass on. Very, very small number. It's not a big number, but it would be a number, right? And so you say, okay, we're going to rent what's going rent around here for Idaho land? I mean, not much. Okay, so you rent it for going rate. Heck, be generous. We're going to rent it for double because we're doing direct marketing and we're multi-species and we can do that. So we're going to rent it for double, and all that's going to go into a pot. And at the passing of mom and dad, that gets divided 9 ways, and that honors the fact that they have the right last name. Mm-hmm. I didn't say that was the perfect idea. I just said you can be creative and say, all right, we want to honor the fact we don't want awkward Thanksgivings and Christmases, right? We want to avoid that if at all possible. Now, they probably will be anyway because family's family, but but hopefully not. The idea is that we don't want this to be bad feeling. So number one, you have to have the conversations early and often so that everybody understands. And secondly, you have to get away from the fair and equal. And then thirdly, if there is a way to give effort towards a token, something that you can pass on, then that makes it eases the blow. You know, it's not like suddenly that the golden child gets the farm. And then putting contingencies into that trust situation to where you can't just sell it when it goes up by 10 times because something moved in next door or something changed in our culture. That's a lot of me talking. I have no idea if that's helpful or not. It's just, and it's very, very anti-culturally. I totally get it. The idea of like, no, we have 4 kids. They all get 25% of a law business that none of them want and none of them understand. And we all think that's completely normal until it becomes farmland. And then everybody thinks they need a piece of the pie. Just because it's valuable, just because it's hugely valuable. And as we just talked about at the beginning of this conversation, it's actually not very valuable. They'd be better off to not own it and invest in stocks and bonds.
I think in both of your examples, whether it's law or ag,
Yep.
what happens is they made that decision.
Absolutely.
When they were like late teens, early 20s,
Sure.
whatever, they
Yeah.
decided not to be the lawyer.
Right.
They could have been the lawyer, they didn't.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. And that's not their fault. It doesn't mean that they're better or
That
worse.
doesn't make them bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, our entire society pretty much says that the farmer is the lowest rung on the ladder. So, I mean, that's the whole thing is like, it's cool that some people might actually think that it's cool
Right.
to go into farming. But that's not the general attitude. The general attitude's like, oh, you're throwing away all your opportunities to go back to the farm?
Right.
Why are you doing that? Yeah. I did go to college.
Yeah,
Why are you going back to the farm?
Right.
Well, actually, it's a quality of life thing.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to have a family.
And those are all choices that people made. And so I think the big thing is the relation. Like, how do you stave off this? It's the relational. You stave it off with relational equity. Like, how do we get to the end when the will gets read, and all 9 of them don't look at you and go, "Wow, you really, yeah, you Jacob that situation. You really suckered this situation." How do we get away from that? Well, we get away from it by making sure that they are all, loved, treated, and respected equally in their ways now. And I'm not saying you don't do that already. You seem like really good parents, and that's great. But that's, one of the ways to do it. And the other way to do it is to make sure they get as much benefit from you and the farm and or the choices to do that you can give them now. Whatever. It's nice to be like, I'm not saying we do the whole prodigal son, like give them their inheritance now, but like whatever you can give them now and say, hey, because you have the last name, we want to give you this. We want to bless you in this way. And you probably already have everything from paying for college to whatever. And I don't know, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know.
Free CSA.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll give them a free CSA.
And whatever, okay. And that's what and having that conversation of this is what we can give. Mm-hmm. We're not rich.
This kind of answers a part of the follow-up question for me, which was, and this is just as much for us, maybe even more for the audience, but it's basically just the idea of like, okay, if they don't get something if it succeeds, but they do get something if it fails, that seems to give more incentives and weight to wedges, right? Like, because you got people sitting here going, yeah, I'm very happy for Dave and Ann, but I'd have a lot of money if they failed.
Right.
And they get double, but I'd get something. and that'd be great, right? And so I don't like that.
Yeah, I sure hate to see a fire come to that property.
Yeah, right.
No, that's exactly the thought, right?
Sure.
And I don't
Sure.
like that idea, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody has a bad phase of their life,
Sure.
and you know, so the thing is we're talking about this all across the country, and
Yeah.
so different families going to have different problems, but that seems to add something negative. And so the question is, how could you possibly turn the tables so that it's like, no, the success of the thing is just good for everybody, and everybody knows it, that it's better than it failing.
Yeah. I will hopefully be more versed in some of that soon.
Yeah.
I don't have a home run answer, but you're right. I mean, the idea is that you do want everybody to be positive about it and be successful and be excited about its success. You know, there's lots of ways to think about it, I guess, and it's just a matter of coming up with one that works for everybody, and the idea that it's not just having that conversation up front, saying we're not trying to make it fair. Like just getting that out on the table, just saying, hey, by the way, you know, next Christmas, FYI, everybody, this is not going to be fair. We're trying to figure out how to make it as loving and compassionate and as supportive to your future as possible. You're meaning all the family, but it's not always going to be fair. And that has nothing to do with our love and our support of each one of you individually. And, you know, just having that conversation alone is a good start. But, you know, whether it's been said in those many words or not, I don't know, and that's not for me to know. But I think that just for me in our operation, so, you know, I'm 45, my name's not on anything, right? And Polyface, I am an employee.
You don't own anything.
I don't own nothing. My name's not even in the business, you know, and that's public knowledge. There we go.
Neither does Musk.
Right. The great part about that is that I'm an employee just like everybody else. No big deal. The company pays me and I'm happy. Now, that is going to be changing here in a little bit, but here's what I'm getting at. I know plenty of 45-year-olds who are resentful about that because their name's not on the piece of paper. For me, I am not resentful at all about it. In fact, I actually love it because we've A, had the conversation so I know what's going to happen, and B, I'm comfortable because I have authority. And that's the big one. So if I have control and or authority, my name doesn't need to be on the paper. I don't care. I don't need to own it. So you can put it in some sort of trust or some type of, I don't care. However that works, doesn't matter to me. We as land stewards just need control. And so, like, you know, scripture talks about, you know, Jesus giving authority to his disciples. They weren't necessarily Jesus's, but they had his authority. And that's all that mattered. And that's what I'm talking about, is that you don't have to own the property. You just need the decision-making authority transferred to you. And that's where I am. Right, so my dad and parents have been very good and very intentional about letting me have authority to make decisions in growing areas. As I didn't have all the authority I have now when I was 20, but you get the idea. And as my abilities and desires and skill sets grew, you know, so did my authority, and to the place where I'd be perfectly fine to never have my name on it. You know, so if it skipped my generation somehow and it went into some trust for my kids somehow, fine. I don't need it because I have authority over it.
And you're not going to turn around and sell it. So
And
it's
I'm not gonna
of
turn-
any value financially to you.
It goes right back to what you said.
As long as you can get income.
It's only
that you
valuable
can
what I
produce
produce.
from it.
Exactly. And that's what I've told all of my children and everything, is that as long as the rain falls and the sun shines, there's opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it may be everything from, and it may not look the same. It may be livestock like it is now. It may be something very different. I mean, there was a phase when my boys were all into airsofting, and they're like, can we take 5 acres of woods and turn it into an airsoft field? I'm like, sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. You know, let's get out the skid loader and push over some trees and make some bunkers, and we can have all sorts of fun stuff. And that phase petered out. We didn't do it, but I would have been perfectly happy to do that.
Nice. And
If
you
that
could.
would have been what we wanted to do. There's a land. It is really a land of opportunity. Land equals opportunity. Right. And so whether it be to be completely in control of the whole thing, or be like I was talking about with the Gentry situation, where you have access to generational access, then that builds opportunity. So again, if one of your siblings suddenly said, you know what, I tell you what, I'll buy everything you produce off of that because I'm going to open a cannery and I'm going to can everything, or I'm going to pickle everything or whatever, and I'm going to build it right over here on the corner of the property, and so you produce everything and you don't even have to market it, I'll just send it straight through me and I'll value add it and sell it out that way. You'd be like, sweet.
Let's go.
Dude, done. Right? But that's complimentary and it works.
The only issue, and this was my other question, is the space. And so we're on 10 acres. We have a 2.5 acre farm. And we could expand into the other 7.5 acres, of course, but also we got some nice woods with a camping area and whatnot.
Sure.
You know, and so it is cramped in that sense, easy to get overstocked in that sense. And so there's the idea of expansion, and also the idea of like, well, what if, you know, a bunch of gangs moved into the neighborhood and they decriminalized fentanyl, and you've got people walking around like zombies down there. I don't know. Like we don't know what it's going to be like in 20 years. I think Idaho will be fine, but also the principle holds for the average person here.
Yes.
And so the question is like, okay, so you put yourself in a trust, you put all this work into some land,
right,
but then some policy or environmental or whatever thing
unforeseen
changes
stuff,
that makes it actually now worthless in the sense of the farming itself. Maybe you lost your source of water.
Yeah.
Or
Sure.
something.
Out here, that's a big issue. Of course.
Do you know anything about like writing trusts? So there's some kind of a caveat there so that you can better the situation.
Yeah.
than
Well,
you're
clearly
in.
there's trustees, right? And so the trustees can make decisions.
Yeah.
What it means is that one person can't just arbitrarily decide what they want to do, right? And I'm not fully, again, invested in and fully versed in trustee and trust law. But I do understand that a trust has trustees.
Yeah.
Right, and as long as the trustees are united in the big picture idea,
Right.
then they're going to, you know, if you're surrounded by fentanyl zombies, then
Right.
they may say, okay, let's sell this 10 acres and go buy 20 acres over
Yes,
here instead.
exactly.
And as long as all trustees are agreed to it, the whole part and parcel can
Yeah.
move.
And
But
in this-
if they're
in this
not,
particular-
then you gotta figure it out.
And in this particular case, for example, like let's just say, in my case, all right? So we're talking about, 500 acres, right? I could, if I wanted to, if that became mine at some point, I could sell it, invest it, live off the interest, and not work another day in my life. So if I wanted. Now, would I be fulfilled in that? Absolutely not. I'd be bored stiff in the first 10 minutes. It would be terrible. But so in this case, it's a little bit different, and then you're going to take. So again, the money is not yours anyway. You're going to take the money from the trust, right? You're going to sell this piece. You're going to immediately invest it in this piece. So you're not again rolling around in the money like Scrooge McDuck. You're just taking. So again, that money is not really yours. It just went from one piece of investment to another one.
Right.
And the vision went with it, exactly. So you're still in the trust. So from a sibling perspective, from a sibling envy perspective, yes, you went from 10 acres to 20 acres. But you had all the move, you had all the trauma, all the upheaval, all the deals. You had to work all the magic. You had to talk with the realtors, which is a huge investment. And you still don't have access to the cash.
Right.
It's still in another piece of property.
Yeah.
So the land trust still exists. It's just at another address.
Right, the only problem would be him selling it and moving to Hawaii and sipping Mai Tais all day.
Right,
Then
exactly.
there'd be the envy.
Sure, exactly.
But as long as he shares the vision and that's not gonna happen, it's not an issue.
Yeah, and in this particular case, you're not going to sit Mai Tais for very long on 10 acres. Like it's going to run short pretty quick.
Yeah, Dave drank all those Mai Tais, and that's over.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, all two of them.
that is the issue.
And so
It's
for
not
me,
much.
I mean, putting it in my perspective, I understand that's where the sibling envy could come in because I actually could call it a day at 55 or 60 and blow off into the sunset and just hunt everywhere and call it a day. Now,
One of your ideas that I liked and you kind of hinted at it earlier, was the fact that you said the one sibling, you know, you're on the property, you're there, you're making your living from it. But because it's a Salatin property, you know, your siblings have the option, maybe they want to move in and make an airsoft
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
And you say, hey, go for it. You
Yeah.
develop it, you do it, you know, you get 80% of the income and 20% is going to stay with the trust.
Yep, exactly.
Go for it.
Yep.
I'm happy to have you do it. Well,
Yes.
in his case, it could do the same thing. Maybe
No.
somebody starts the
I'm gonna
cannery,
veto. No,
or somebody starts
it's too cramped, man. It's too
somebody
cramped.
starts
Right.
instead of doing vegetables, they're
Right.
going to run a flower farm.
But what
It's
it, but you
complementary,
do
and they go together.
and you do what you do have is the ability to join the business and the brand.
Right.
There you
And
go.
so you may not have to be able to be the sand land based, but you may be able to encourage and to facilitate the complementary branding that you would have.
This was what though I was kind of pushing. My dream is
Right.
to be able to expand 50 acres here, 50 acres there, and like pretty close to where we're at.
Right.
Leasing and having all mobile everything.
Sure.
And then as my brothers all start lining up to do this work with us, there'll be a place for them that's not right
Sure.
in my backyard. You know,
Right.
I think we're all old enough that we need a
But
little
they
bit more
can all
space
be
in that.
The Carricker family farm, pastured poultry.
Sure,
or
yeah.
salad bar,
Yeah.
Or cut
Or
flowers,
your
or
your
vegetables, whatever.
apiary, and you got your honey or your tinctures or
And it's
goat
a
soap or
co-op.
whatever.
It's kind of a co-op.
And you
So
begin
the-
building on the brand. And that's one of the things that certainly, you know, myself even benefited from that as a young person just when I started raising rabbits. You know, I didn't have to really, I mean, I did go out and market some, but I didn't have to market a lot. And it just glommed on to the brand, and that created opportunity. Ditto with my kids with their, you know, different animals. Again, they don't have them now and they're pursuing other interests. But that was the way
That
they
was
were
there
able
for
to
them
get
when
a
they
leg
wanted
up
it.
when they were young. I mean, realizing that all of my kids have entered their, you know, young teens or even adult teen life with a very sizable nest egg without having to be out flipping burgers at 15
Right,
and a
because
half.
they could sell muffins.
Because
or
they can,
have
right, yeah,
sheep
you
or
can
goats
raise
or
ducks, you
whatever.
can raise sheep, you can do whatever you want. And those things then gave them a leg up, and some of them took extreme advantage of it, and some of them didn't. And the resulting blessing of that carries over into their adult life of choices that they made, as you so perfectly said.
You know, I remember in one of Joel's books that he sat down one time for a couple hours, and you came up with like 80 different full-time salaries
Right.
just off the same piece of ground.
Right, exactly.
All working.
No,
Sure.
that was Joel with
Yeah,
the dad.
but it's the same. I mean, we still have it. I mean, and it's still there. I mean, we're only like 20 in, so there's still 60 more opportunities, and there's probably more on top of
Way
that
more than
still.
that, I'm sure.
Of course, and those are ways. And so, what I didn't get to say in the evening, sometime or in the lunch, that I do think is important is one of the things is that we have these 1 year, 5 year, 10 year plans. A lot of times that's encouraged with planners and all these things. And at the end of the day, those futures are limited by our creativity at that moment.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And so not only do we find out a whole bunch of other stuff in the way as we got there, and so it seems. I mean, I'm not saying don't have some sort of plan, but I tell a lot of people don't get caught up in the plan so much of just doing the next right thing. Do the next right thing, and it'll be fine.
Hold it with an open hand.
Yep, exactly. And at the end of the day, too, from a spiritual perspective, His ways are a lot higher than our ways. And a lot of times when we try to plan our future, we're limiting ourselves because He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and we might think we're going to try to get to 100 hills. And He's like, hey, how about you get all 1,000? And we're like, whoa, okay. And because we didn't even think to ask it, right? And I'm not saying that you get everything you ask for, but I am saying that He enjoys very specific asks and very specific desires from His kids, and the opportunity to do that and speak clearly, and it also leads itself to this. You're very clear, like, hey, I would like the farm, Mom and Dad. So that's, those of you out there watching or listening, like, have that conversation. I've heard it said, if you're basing your future on hopes and dreams, you're taking a hell of a chance. Right? And so have the conversation. It might be awkward, and they may say no, but you should have it. and whether that's with the neighbor farm that you think, huh, I haven't seen his kids around for 10 years. I wonder what he's going to do with it, or they're going to do with it. And that's not a grabby, like lustful, covetous type conversation. It's just a, hey, and we've had it really recently with one of our neighbors, and it felt kind of weird, but at the same time, it was very honoring. We just said, hey, don't know what your future plan is, don't know what your succession plan is, but we would love to carry on your father's vision of the property, and if you ever feel like we're a part of that, let us know. And 4 months later, they came down and said, here's a nice 5-year lease with an option to buy. How about that? And we're like, wow, okay. And it doesn't happen like that every time. But you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the conversations that can be had within a family and without a family.
Yeah, if it's
And
meant to be, it'll be.
exactly. And I'm not saying that, and no is a good clarity answer. But if you're sitting there thinking, I wonder what they'd say if I said this, say it.
Yeah.
And have that conversation.
Rather than regret never asking and then losing the opportunity.
And never knowing. Exactly. Yep, for sure.
And always wondering.
And always wondering. Yep, well said. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Daniel.
My pleasure, everybody. So
This was
good.
tremendous.
So good. Nice to meet you both and all of you hanging out. And yeah, Godspeed in your future decisions, because that's going to be it's going to be fun. I mean, I only have one sibling, and then I only have 3 kids, so it's a little more manageable.
Make that decision with 3 kids, so
Yeah.
it's still going to be
It's-
not
it
fair
will-
and
it-
equitable.
It will not be fair, and it will not be equitable, and
Right, but it'll
especially
be plain.
especially-
One of them
and-
will blossom.
and especially if none of them, we've already had that one, is that if none of them want it, none of them get it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Because it's about access, ownership, and desire,
Right.
right? Again, because
Yes.
I mean, if one's a mechanic, one's a doctor, and one's a lawyer, what do they want a farm for?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, now they love it, so they love the access, and so that kind of lifetime access stuff is a big piece. You know, your piece is maybe not as big as ours, but having that, like, you know, for my middle son to be able to come and walk by or where his, you know, livestock guardian dog is buried, like, that's meaningful. That matters. That has value. So lifetime access is very important for those kind of things. So,
So
that
is it your goal to put the property in a trust that has trustees and
I
it'll
think that's
manage
I
it
think
like
that's
that
where it's going. Yeah,
ultimately?
again, we were going to be much more knowledgeable about that in about 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
than we are right now. But
Obviously, inheritance taxes and stuff like that can break up the farm
that can
and
break it
kill
up
you,
too. Absolutely, it sure can.
you know.
Yeah, it
And
sure can.
I don't want, you know, that to happen, because it's, you know,
Yeah.
10 acres is not that valuable in the big scheme of
Sure.
things. But you do want,
Yeah,
You know what I get?
yeah, that's great.
okay.
Yeah, it's
All
very, very interesting because at the same time, yeah, you don't want to have, all those things affecting
You
it
get
as
all the
well.
work and the government just sweeps in.
Right.
And says, we get 25%, well.
And then it's all
I
gets
don't
sold.
have any money
Right,
to
no,
give
you don't have any money.
25%, I have to sell the whole thing in
Yeah,
order to
you
give it
get
to
you get
and now it's
25%
worth
of
nothing.
that, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh,
All
thank
right.
you.
You're our pleasure. Good stuff.
All right. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, you
Thank you
need
very much.
that one.